The Boeing Condor is a 201-foot wingspan, completely robotic spy plane. And it's made out of carbon fiber composite, which makes it stealthy. This particular aircraft could fly up as high as 67,000 feet and stay airborne for up to 2.5 days. It was built as a spy plane for the CIA. It's a very successful program back in 1985, and it tested robotic flight. When I say robotic flight, that wasn't remote control. It was robotic. It was programming the computer what to do, where to fly, where to go, and come back and land. What this is the grandfather to the Global Hawk, which is what our military uses today. It is a 201-foot wingspan, which makes it 6 feet longer than the 747-100 series, and no pilots. The NASA Swing Wing was an interesting aircraft because the wing actually swinged. It actually rotated. It would take off like a conventional aircraft straight across, and then it would swing into the position you see it now as it got higher and faster altitude. What this did is it caused less drag, and by less drag it got better fuel efficiency. So that is the NASA Swing Wing that used to fly right out of Moffett for many, many years. And it was designed by Burt Rutan, who is the designer of the Voyager, one of the aircraft to fly all the way around the world. There's pictures of the Condor flying. You can notice the bow in the wings because the wings were so long. It actually had a nice big bow to it as they flew along. It had 180 horsepower Continental engines in it, so not very big engines to be flying this big aircraft, but it was very light because it was carbon fiber composite. It was very, very light. And we have a piece of the tail that we have on display so people can actually come up and touch it, feel it, and see how light it is, but also how strong it is. Very strong material. And that's what a lot of the aircraft are being built out of today, is this type of composite material. Then we go from the large, giant spy plane like the Condor to the very, very tiny spy planes. Some of them the size of a coffee mug. And these are spy planes, and there I am in the TV, that can hover, by remote control just above, 10 or 15 or 100 feet up high, where nobody knows it's up there hovering around, but yet has the cameras on surveillance. So there are those working on the very big spy planes, and those are working on the very small spy planes. And these are some of those examples of the micro surveillance aircraft. A lot of people are talking about the V-22, the Ospreys, that the Marines are now starting to use as their new combat-ready aircraft helicopter, if you will, that has the tilt rotor system that takes off like a helicopter, but then the rotors and engines turn, and it flies like an aircraft. Well, this is a concept that Hiller was working on back in the 1960s, and he was working with Voight and the Ryan Company. The very first of the aircraft was called the X-18, and it was a tilt wing. The entire wing actually tilted to the transition for vertical flight, and then transition back to horizontal flight. And that was the X-18, and it was using 2 counter-rotating propellers from a very big engine to do that. And then it went on to the XC-142, which was a 4-engine version of this particular aircraft. So interesting concept that now Bell has been able to take on and turn into the V-22 Osprey. If there ever was to be a helicopter in everyone's garage, then this one would have been it. This is the Hiller Hornet, and it was actually on the cover of Popular Mechanics back in the 1950s of the helicopter that would be in everyone's garage. Well, that wouldn't be very practical, but it was kind of compact and cute, and they thought that was a neat way to look at it. But what was so neat about the Hiller Hornet is that it had jet tip propulsion. The actual engines were on the tips of the rotor blades, and that was little ramjet engines. And so they would start spinning the aircraft, the blades, with a little chainsaw engine, and then as it got going faster, they could ignite the ramjets because it needed air flowing through it. They would ignite the ramjets, and then it would really get spinning. But I also understand it was also one of the noisiest things known to man. If you've ever heard a ramjet engine, they are very, very loud. But it would also put out a big ring of fire. And at nighttime, the stories go that they would fly these at nighttime down at Hiller Aircraft, which was in Menlo Park. and there'd be this giant ring of fire going whoop, 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 whoop in the air and hovering. Well, this is 1950s. People still weren't used to seeing helicopters flying in the area. And so this thing would be hovering out there with this big ring of fire, and the sheriffs would get all these phone calls of UFOs attacking Menlo Park and flying in the area. So a lot of those early UFO calls were actually the Hiller Hornet flying out there in Menlo Park, the big ring of fire. Probably our most popular exhibit at the Hiller Aviation Museum is our 747. And we have the front end of a real 747. The front section of it, both decks, both the first class cabin and the captain's, the pilot cockpit up above. This came to us. It used to be a British Airways airplane that was retired and sold to AAR Corporation, which is a dismantling company in Roswell, New Mexico. Well, one of our board of directors at the time was friends with Mr. Hiller, and over a few drinks in Chicago, from what I understand, the deal came together and we got the 747. So we had to go to Roswell, New Mexico, cut it up off the main 747, and then cut it in half and slide the top part into the bottom part and then truck it all the way here from Roswell, New Mexico. It took over a week, only going at nighttime with the police escort and everything. But we got it here, and then we had to take it back out, put it back together, and put all the insides back together again with the seats and the baggage components and the cockpit and everything back together to the display you see today. So this is an actual 747. It's very, very popular because people can actually come in and sit in the cockpit of a 747, which I'll show you next. And we're also very popular with people who want to do shoots, like for commercials or things like that, because they can't get in airplanes anymore since 9/11 at airports. So we've become a very popular place to be able to do your movie work. So we'll show you the upstairs. We're now in the cockpit of our 747, and as you can see why this is one of our most popular attractions, because you can actually touch the controls. These are our engines and the steering wheel controls. All this is able to be touched, and normally we have volunteers in here that are pilots that flew 747s, and if there's the time and not a crowd to get in it, you can actually take you through the startup procedures and shutdown procedures of how to do a 747. So it's a very hands-on exhibit, and a lot of fun for people to see what it's like up in the front of the big airliner airplane. Now, you saw the Hiller flying platform. This is a more modern version of the personal flying aircraft called the Solo Trek, and it used two counter-rotating blades to get its propulsion system and fly around. This particular aircraft did a lot of tether test flights, but it actually never flew without tether lines solo by itself. They are working on other versions of this to be able to do that. But most people remember it being in the movie Agent Cody Banks, and this is how he was rescued with the Solo Trek aircraft when he was in the cave that was blowing up. So the Solo Trek. So maybe coming to a garage near you someday soon. This particular aircraft is called the BD-5. This one is the turboprop that had a APU unit for a CH-47 helicopter. So it was a little jet engine, but it turned the propeller back there. There were two other versions of this. There was a completely straight combustion engine propeller version and a completely straight jet engine version. The jet engine version was in the movie Octopussy in the opening scenes with James Bond. But these are fun little airplanes, very, very fast, very, very dangerous. And this is our little BD-5 jet that we take around to shows and schools and things like that, because it's so small we can get it into places like that. But little BD-5. One of the great things about being an aviation museum and being on an airport is that we can do flying activities. We can bring visiting aircraft in and have different days of sponsoring different types of aircraft. This particular day is World War II trainer aircraft, and the theme of that is come see the airplanes. And the theme of that is come see the airplanes that taught the fighter pilots and bomber pilots how to fly. And that's what these are, the World War II trainer aircraft. We have Stearman and Wacos and PT-21s and 22s and Ryans and all kinds of interesting aircraft here display about World War II training aircraft. We do various things. We have another event called Yak Attack, which is a bunch of Russian aircraft. We have Vertical Challenge, which is an all-helicopter air show. And as you see right now, we have one of the World War II trainer aircraft, one of the Stearman, taking off now.